and welcome to my channel. This is actually my first video, so I'm so excited to start this here right now because I just want to share my love for horror films and TV shows, or also films in general. So if you're excited about that as well, I would love if you could leave a follow here or a comment or a like and share your passion with me as well. So let's start why we are all here. We need to talk about Scream 7. I've watched it twice in cinema with my boyfriend, and first of all, I love the Scream franchise. It's my favorite film of all time. And Scream 7 was kind of like, you know, it was good, but like it was not it, you know? Like, I think I've also read it online, it has the worst score of all Scream films, and I get it. So that's why we are here to talk about it. So big spoiler warning, we're gonna talk about all the endings of the film, all the ending of the film. Yeah, so let's get into it. So let's start with the first scene, which I actually have to say I liked a lot. It starts with the couple having like an Airbnb weekend at the Macher House, which is set like a museum about all the Step franchise and what happened there, which I liked a lot. Honestly, I was so excited to see it like that, and I could also feel the guys' excitement about it. And I love the first scene, I really liked it. And at the end, of course, like in the usual Step or Scream manner, they get killed by a Ghostface, and Ghostface burns the entire house down, which is how the film starts. And this is also where I have to send my first critique, to be honest, because, you know, I feel like, just the scene was good. I liked it. I loved it actually. But I feel that the entire marketing campaign, or at least a big amount of it, is set around the burning down of the Macher House. And I think, you know, doing it all in the first scene, what is said to be like the big thing in your trailer, kind of gives it off for me, because then I expect, when you've seen the trailer, that there's a bigger burning down going on in the film, at the end of the film. But it all happened in the first scene. So it kind of didn't really make sense to me to set the marketing around that. If you wouldn't have set the marketing around that, then I would have loved it, the scene, probably even more. But, it kind of sets it off for me, because there was no bigger burning in the film. And the film, I have these like movie cards here, as you can see, also on the film poster. It's all says kind of like, oh, it will all burn down, and all of that happens in the first scene. Okay, I get it, but then kind of fell flat. So honestly, I like the first scene, but marketing wise here, I would have made it differently probably. But it kind of still worked. So we're not here to critique the marketing or the trailer. I've also watched the trailer for just to get again how it was marketed, and it kind of was like, oh yeah, it will all burn down. Oh yeah. I can show you a snippet of the trailer shortly.
You need to make sure you shoot him in the head.
I'm gonna burn it all down.
Mother!
So you get what I mean? Anyway, let's continue with what I would say the actual story is. So the actual story starts with Sidney's daughter Tatum, who's 17 and gets visited by her boyfriend Ben through her window. We quickly get into the relationship of Sidney and her daughter Tatum, that Sidney is kind of like this overprotective mom, and Tatum kind of wants her freedom and also wants to know what happened to Sidney in her past. But Sidney doesn't want to talk about it, and I think I can get both sides, kind of. So it was nice to see the relationship between these two here and to see what the problem is. We also see Tatum's boyfriend Ben, who kind of wants to prove to Sidney, wants to show that he's actually a good guy, and she's still suspicious towards him, which I can totally understand, concerning all of her past. But anyway, this is how the actual story starts, which I actually liked a lot. We then quickly get into Sidney's job. She's, I think, an owner of the cafe there, which is called the Little Latte, I think. And we see her working and getting visited by some other characters. Her neighbor, for example, what's her name again? I think it was Jessica. Her neighbor Jessica and her son Lucas. Yeah, it was Lucas. And he's kind of this film nerd, and he's like so excited to see Sidney. Maybe wants to talk with her about her past, and Jessica is more like, oh, don't talk to her, don't, stop bothering Sidney. And then we see like a little chat between Jessica and Sidney, where Jessica tells Sidney that she's like, I think, kind of glad to be her neighbor and to know her, because just Sidney's book, which we got to know in Scream 4, kind of helped her with getting out of the abusement of her husband. We don't get much more information about her husband at this point, but this is actually what we know about Jessica. At the same time, we see Sidney's daughter Tatum with her friends Chloe and Hannah, and they get picked up by her boyfriend Ben to go to theater rehearsals. We see their rehearsal and we get to know that Tatum isn't really like trying to shine, or maybe also can't really shine as much as her teacher wants her to do. And we kind of get her frustration about it, that she constantly gets compared to Sidney, who, is like the final girl who fights for everything in her life, and Tatum is shown as like more insecure. We then get to a scene where Hannah and another guy, I don't know his name anymore, but it's like it's making all the light effects, are alone on the stage, and that's where actually the first killing starts. But before that, we see Sidney getting a call in her office from someone who seems to be Stu Macher, which she also sees on the video call. And he's shown to be in front of the school theater telling Sidney that he's gonna kill her daughter. Sidney, of course, is completely shocked by that. Also to see his face again, and obviously his face aged as well. So she immediately calls the police and drives to the theater. And her husband, Mark, I think was his name, also is a police officer, and all of them just drive to the school theater. And in the meantime, we see the actual Ghostface coming back and slicing up Hannah, and we don't see him slicing up the linesman, but I think the scene where he kills Hannah on the, in the air basically, I think the scene was pretty cool. It was pretty graphic, and I love this shot at the end, which is also seen in the trailer. I can show it here quickly. And that's basically the first victim of the circle of friends in the set story. And I have to say some things about this kill. I have to say it was graphic, which I liked a lot, but it was kind of like, what we know Scream for is that you usually see the people fight against Ghostface, like having a little fight, Ghostface stumbling over something, and then also the victim stumbling over something and all of that. And we didn't get it here. And that's something which bothers me, because I like a little fight. I love the little fight in Scream, and she's just hanging in the air. There's no way of her to escape from that. It was graphic, but it was also boring at the same time. The kill was okay. It was okay for me, but it wasn't like what I know from Ghostface, It was okay. I think it was okay, but it was not like the Ghostface we knew. Anyway, Sidney arrives at the scene, sees Ghostface. She's trying to shoot him, but he escapes, of course. And then all of a sudden, all people just show up. What's going on here? Tatum shows up, her boyfriend shows up, Chloe show up, and then they get asked by the police about what happened, and kind of suss each other. But that's just what we know from all other Scream films, which I liked as well. And Sidney, I think it was Sidney, she also says that Ben is kind of like this IT guy. He could make a deep fake of Stu. So this scene kind of makes Ben look more sus to be the killer, but at this point, after or in the seventh film, we know that everyone is a suspect. Doesn't matter how sus he or she gets. We then continue at Sidney's house with her family, where she gets police protection, but Ghostface is already in the house. We get to an attack scene where the father, or Sidney's husband, Mark, is getting attacked, and Sidney and her daughter try to escape and hide in like panic room, I think, something like that. We then get into a really good, intense scene where they try to find a way out of the panic room to seek help and, of course, try to save Mark. And for that, they trying to escape via a little floor between the walls of the living room. And then we see Ghostface hearing to the footstep sound or also the breathing sound. He then gets that they're behind the walls, so he starts stepping the walls. And I think this scene was pretty good. It was pretty intense, and I really like that scene. At the end of the scene, Mark attacks Ghostface and they fight with each other, and Ghostface also stabbed Mark multiple times. And I think Sidney was also hurt in her arm somewhere. Ghostface is then pushed onto the streets by Mark, and then all of a sudden is run over. And it was so weird, but I was also kind of loving it because it was so random. It was kind of giving me like Final Destination vibes somehow. We then get to know that the driver is actually Gale, and she just comes out of the car and was like, "Did I hit him or something like that?" And or is he done, or I don't know anymore. But I thought that scene was so good because it was just so random. I loved it, to be honest. We also see Chad and Mindy from Scream 5 and 6, who are like interns for Gale, I think now. So it kind of made sense to me. I also think they vibe with each other pretty good. I like that how they match each other's energy. And it was just a funny scene and also nice to see them again. We then see that they are removing Ghostface's mask, and I love that scene as well because they were like, who the fuck is this guy? We've never seen this guy before. I think he was maybe shortly seen in the cafe. Sidney also said that he was in the cafe, but I don't remember that anymore, honestly. But Gale is also like, who the fuck is that? And I love this scene because when I remember the first time I watched the film, I was watching it with my boyfriend, and they were removing the mask, and I just looked to my boyfriend. I said, "Who the fuck is that?" And then Gail in the cinema also said that, which I think was so good because what I like about Scream is they kind of know what the viewer is thinking, and they actually talk about it in the film, which I think is fantastic. But at this point, you then wonder what's going to happen. And that's also something I love that they're saying that because they say, oh, it's always someone you know, so there probably is going to be a different ghost face walking around. This one we just hit is not a real one. It turns out that the ghost face they run over is someone who escaped from a mental asylum nearby. So Gale and Sidney want to know what is going on. Why is he Ghostface? Why was he threatening them? So they decide that they want to drive to the mental asylum to just find out what's going on. Also, when Sidney and Gale were talking, they're getting called by Stu again, which confirms that there is a different Ghostface going around as well. Please correct me if I don't have the scenes in chronological order. We then see Sidney and Gale driving to the mental asylum, asking about the guy who pretended to be Ghostface. The doctor there, who I think is called Dr. Davis, or maybe he wasn't a doctor, but you know, a worker there, then tells them that he was kind of like a crazy psychopath who murdered, I think, 3 women previously and escaped and just went on this crazy killer spree or tried to make a killer spree. Anyway, we get to know the doctor, which is important for later. And Sidney and Gale also ask the doctor if he knows a specific guy and show him a screenshot of the video call with Stu. Dr. Davis then tells him, yeah, this is John Doe. And it's like, what the hell? Why the fuck would he say that? And apparently, John Doe, aka Stu Macher, used to live there for 30 years. And he was kind of like this. He was like, oh yeah, he came from the streets and we took care of him and he was released 2 weeks ago. And of course, this is kind of like, what the fuck? Is Stu still alive? Which I think is kind of, you know, like, the thing is, it's cool to see Stu again, but the idea of him still being alive it's kind of ridiculous. Like, come on, like, it feels like they're running out of ideas, but at the same time, it's like the 7th film, so I kind of get it. But it's just ridiculous to me. Like, honestly, I heard in an interview with Matthew Lillard that he was actually supposed to be the killer in Scream 3, which would have made more sense because there wouldn't been like such a long time span between his death and his return. But like 30 years later, come on, it's ridiculous. What do you think about it? Like, come on. But anyway, let's just continue with it. Gale and Sidney then talk in front of the mental asylum about what they're gonna do next, and then Sidney's phone is now tracked to track every call she gets, so she wants to make sure that if Stu calls again, she can, or the police can track his phone. So they are now thinking about how can they make him call Sidney again. So Sidney and Gale finally agree after 30 years to make an interview together. So where Sidney will talk about all of her experiences with Gale together so that he can call within the interview and they can track his phone. And I think I like the idea of the interview because it's also something I think most fans have been waiting for. It's kind of like a big thing. But we will talk about that when we will come to that scene. Meanwhile, we see Mark getting attacked by Ghostface at the house, and I gotta say about that, with all the stabbing that happened, he should be dead. Like, he should have been dead. I think that scene was good. I think it was intense. I like the setting. But I think he should have, bled to death, which he didn't. But we will talk about that also later on. Also, at the same time, I think a scene before it was, we've seen Tatum talking with Chad and Mindy about all the circle of suspects, and they tell her it's probably one of her friends, so they all should meet at the tavern or somewhere all together where they can talk about it so they can find out who the actual killer is. So that's why Tatum is also not in the house when Mark was getting attacked, and they all hang out at the tavern. So Mindy, Chad, Chloe, Lucas, Ben, and Tatum. So they all meet at the tavern and kind of like suss each other, like in typical Scream manners, which I also liked a lot, honestly. But it already starts with the first, like, honestly, I know it's a horror film and they're all supposed to get killed, but with Mindy and Chad, it's the third film for them, and they all kind of seem to know what they were doing. Why don't they say anything when they kind of like split up? Why don't they say anything? It doesn't make sense to me. It does not make sense to me. Why are they not saying, okay, we should all stick together? It doesn't matter if the pizza burns or anything. We should all stick together. It doesn't make sense. It does not make sense to me. At the same time, the interview with Gale and Sidney airs, where Sidney just tells about kind of what happened recently with Ghostface and a little bit about a book, I think, as well. So, and they kind of set this whole interview up to make space for Stu calling them, which takes some time because he doesn't call them immediately. So they switch a topic to, get some time to Sidney's kids, which Sidney was not okay with, obviously, and then quits the interview. And I think, honestly, we've waited so long for this interview. Gale waited so long. The fans waited so long for this interview. It felt flat. Like, for me, what they've talked about, I didn't really care about it, because the main point of it was that Gale starts to talk with Sidney about her kids, and then she quits the interview because she doesn't want to talk about it. And I think you could have done so much more out of this interview, because like everyone has been waiting so long for it, and then she's quitting it. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, it kind of does, of course, but I think it felt completely flat. It was kind of boring. I already expected that Gale would probably talk with Sidney about her kids. But I think, you've had 6 Scream films till this day. Okay, one of them Sidney was not into. But you could have talked about so much. And it bothers me so much, and I didn't like it. Honestly, I didn't like it. I thought it was boring. Anyway, we see Sidney and Gale having a little talk about that, which I liked again because Gale actually talks about how she's coping with Dewy's death, which I like that they made it a short topic because it kind of gives more impact on Gale's character and also on the relationship Gale and Sidney have. Because honestly, they've been doing these films for 30 years, and I think it's cool to see this connection between them because they were like, for me, they are the protagonists of the films. So seeing this bond between them, I was enjoying. I liked it a lot. Then this whole scene is interrupted by Sidney getting a call by Stu, basically telling them, Stu telling them that he's in front of the tavern and is going to kill Tatum. Then, of course, Sidney completely is shocked about it and runs out of the studio, wants to go to Sidney as fast as possible, which I didn't really get because she's trying to get into the car, but she doesn't have her keys, so she's going by foot, which does not make sense to me because it would have been faster to go back inside the studio, get the keys, and then drive to the tavern than going by foot. Because later on we see that she's not going to make it in time. So then why did she go by foot at all? Like, why didn't she just go back inside to get the keys? It doesn't make sense. She just runs outside, is like, tries to open the door, can't open the door, and goes by foot. Like, doesn't she take these 5 minutes to get back inside? Does not make sense to me. To you, does it make sense to you? Please tell me in the comments because I don't know. I was so confused by that. Even when I watched it the first time, it didn't make sense. There are also some stuff which I only realized when I watched it the second time, but this I realized the first time. What was that? Like, honestly, didn't make sense. Anyway, we then see, of course, all the friends at the tavern, and I think, what's her name again? Chloe is going inside to get the burnt pizza, and she's all alone by herself. Of course, she's getting killed. Well, first of all, she's getting attacked by Ghostface. Generally, I gotta say, the entire point of their meeting was to stick together to find out who the killer is, or to at least stick together, which I think was the point of the meeting. Chad and Mindy initiated this meeting. So Mindy and Chad have been there. I get that they are planning to meet all together to find out who the killer is, but why would they then let anyone walk alone inside of this building? It does not make sense to me because then you get the chance to kill someone. Why would they do this? Why? I mean, it gets a good scene, of course, but I don't get their thought. What did they think about it? What did they think about this? Honestly, like, were they like, oh, we all come together and just get then killed one by one, just like we almost did in Scream 5? Honestly, I don't get it. Anyway, the scene basically is Chloe is in the kitchen alone by herself, trying to discard or just discarding a burnt pizza, and then gets attacked by Ghostface. We see them fighting in the kitchen, we see Chad getting attacked as well, and Chloe running out into the arms of Lucas. And Lucas then decides to run back in the kitchen, trying to protect Chloe, just to get pushed out of the kitchen with a stab in his stomach area. Why did he run into this kitchen? Why? Make it make sense to me. It does not. Because Chloe basically comes out of it saying that there's a killer inside, and he goes in there. What is going on? What was he thinking? Why could they, I don't know, throw a chair through the window and climb out. Make it make sense to me. It does not. It does not. What do you think about it? Please, I need to know if it makes as less sense to you as it does to me, because I don't understand. So then we see Chloe getting killed by getting pushed over the bar and falling into class, which cuts her neck. And Lucas' kill was pretty graphic, but pretty fun as well, because Ghostface is basically sticking his head onto like this beer tap, which then he kind of falls in front of, and all the beer and the blood is getting out of his mouth. I think this was pretty cool. It was pretty graphic, and I like to see, honestly, even though it did not make sense to me in the first place that he ran into the kitchen. But I think we need these graphic scenes due to the lack of story. Because at this point the story was not big, it was not surprising. Sometimes, yeah, of course, when first Ghostface got run over and all of that. But it kind of felt flat, so seeing like some exciting kills here or some exciting scenes here, it was needed. It was needed to save the film. But I think, even though it was graphic and fun to see, killing Lucas was such a missed opportunity. We will talk about this later on, but yeah, I will explain it to you when we come to the scene. Meanwhile, Tatum was in the car with her boyfriend. I think the scene was before, but anyway, doesn't matter. And she sees that Ben was trying to make a deep fake of Stu just to check if it would be possible or easy to fake a deep fake of Stu. She then, of course, suspects him to be the killer because she saw a video of him like saying like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna kill you." Anyway, I completely understand her. And yeah, then she attacks her boyfriend. Of course, he's like unconscious in his car. Then she gets out and then sees Ghostface and gets haunted by Ghostface through the city. I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure this scene was before. Anyway, we then see Tatum running around the city trying to find some kind of shelter from Ghostface. And yeah, Ghostface basically haunts her. Her boyfriend Ben shows up again trying to protect her. Fails, of course. Tatum then finds a place to stay in the café of Sidney. She then hides in there and texts her mom that she is in the cafe. Sidney is trying to come to it in time, but she realizes she's not going to be able to make it, so she then tries to watch the security cameras to help Tatum. Tatum then flees into the office, and Sidney tells her that there's a gun in the safe. Tatum then gets a gun and locks the door from Ghostface. We then see Sidney and Tatum like kind of like work together. Sidney helping her by telling her where she should shoot to hit Ghostface. She then shoots through the wall, hitting Ghostface, and he's on the floor then. Which I like the scene actually a lot. Even though it was kind of weird to have Sidney like on the phone. It was kind of like too modern. If you get what I'm saying, it felt like, especially when Sidney said, "Oh, use your headphones so you have both hands free." I get it, but for me it was kind of too modern, but at the same time I'm not mad about it because it was just, you know, this different approach. I get it, so I'm fine with this. We then see Tatum, of course. We see Tatum shooting Ghostface, getting out of the office, and sees Ghostface lying on the floor, thinking he's dead, and Sidney telling her you need to shoot him in the head because they always come back. We know that. Sidney knows it. And Tatum says, "Oh no, I think he's dead." Listen to your mother. Listen to her. She's been doing this for 5 films. It wasn't the 6th one. She's been doing this for 5 films. Listen to her. Trust her. And she's not doing it. Oh my god, honestly, I was so pissed in that moment. I was so pissed about Tatum. But of course you kind of need to continue with the film somehow. So of course she doesn't shoot him. She gets attacked by him. And all of a sudden second Ghostface shows up which was a surprise to me, honestly. I mean, I could have known that because I think in the entire franchise there's only been one film with one ghost face, which was Scream 3, so all the other films had multiple ghost faces, so I was surprised, honestly, but you could have known that. Anyway, the second ghost face shows up and they capture Tatum. Sidney then gets a call again by Stu, who tells her that he has her daughter captured, and it was kind of weird because he told her that she should come where her heart lives, which does not make sense to me because it was kind of like it was kind of like unnecessarily metaphorical to say that she should come to her house. Like, honestly, it was weird. Of course, then Sidney gets to her house. I don't know how long that took because she was obviously going by foot. Imagine like they waited there like for 2 or 3 hours until she arrived. Like that would have been so weird. Anyway, Sidney shows up in her house. They kind of prepare the TVs with old images of old ghost faces, which was good, but I think they could have gone a bit further by showing all ghost faces. At least all ghost faces Sidney attacked and not just like 3 of them. It was cool to see them, but like if you start this series, then why not including everyone? You know? Anyway, I thought that was weird as well. It was cool, but at the same time weird. I was wondering, were there TVs there before? Or did they set them up because they had enough time? Anyway, we then get into Sidney's garden, which was kind of like a nod to the first film where how it all started with someone taped to a chair in the garden, which I liked, honestly. And yeah, we see Ghostface threatening Tatum and saying basically that Tatum should watch Sidney die. Ghostface is then revealed to be the doctor of the mental asylum, which was weird because he had no reason. Like honestly, we've seen him for one scene. There was no reason for him to be Ghostface. The only reason was so that we have a second Ghostface, but he has no reason to be Ghostface. The only reason for him to be Ghostface is that he basically got seduced into that by the second Ghostface, which is revealed to be Sidney's neighbor Jessica, who's also the mother of Lucas, who just got killed. And it also didn't make sense that he got killed. Like, honestly, why is she killing her own son? Yeah, she also tells, like, oh yeah, he was just like his dad. I ain't buying that. I'm not buying that, honestly. It didn't make sense. And I gotta say here, I said it before, killing Lucas was such a missed opportunity because if you would have let him alive, you could have kind of like set up a situation where he could be confronted with his mother being Ghostface. He's a big horror nerd. He's a big horror film fan, but also a fan of Sidney Prescott. So you could basically set up a scene where he either is more suspected to be Ghostface or be the second Ghostface or whatever, and him kind of being like torn in between helping his mother to be Ghostface or helping Sidney. You could have made that scene. You had such a big opportunity to do that, to give some more bigger emotions, some more bigger bonding, bigger relationship to characters. But you decided to just kill him. And it did not make sense to me because at this point, the characters who got killed, I did not care about any of them. I cared more about the first kill with the Scream nerd than about any of Tatum's friends getting killed. I did not care about it. Not at all. Because the first victim, Hannah, her friend, we've only seen her for one scene and we just to know that they are friends. But we did not get to know her at all. We did not see a real bond between them. And then she got killed. It was really graphic. It was cool to see. But I did not care about her, and I also did not care about Lucas. And killing him off with his mother being Ghostface, and him being a horror film nerd. This is such a missed opportunity for me. Honestly, what do you think about it? The entire storyline felt so flat. It felt so flat. He could have done so much more out of this film. And I get that you kind of make it like a nod, or I've seen some people saying it was kind of nostalgia bait with all the characters from Scream 1, 2, 3, and I get it, but it was such a mess, honestly. So then Jessica then starts with her reasoning to be Ghostface. She says that Sidney's book helped her fighting the abusement of her husband by killing him. And she was such a big fan of Sidney that she wanted to follow her everywhere, but then Sidney kind of disappeared. So she followed her and then realized that she does not need Sidney to be free. So she wants to kill her. Which was kind of odd. I get the reasoning, but it's not enough for me. You know, I ain't buying it. I'm not buying that. It kind of felt like when you're in an exam and have a question which could be specific, which is also asking for something specific, you don't know the answer for it, so you just write down everything else you know despite the answer they want. Get what I'm saying? Like, it felt okay, but it was not giving anything to me. Honestly, when I watched the film for the first time with my boyfriend, I told him, oh, I think it's the neighbor. And the thing is, I kind of knew that it's going to be her, but I was kind of disappointed when it was her. Anyway, the scene continues with Mark getting pulled inside the scene, who's barely alive. Honestly, I think we've seen him getting stabbed like so many times in the stomach, and I think also like the lung. He should be dead. It does not make sense to me that he is still alive, because the second time I watched this film, I saw him getting stabbed like in, I think, the lung it was. So if he wouldn't die by blood loss, he probably should have died by basically drowning in his blood when his lungs would fill with blood. And it does not make sense that he's still alive. Like, why getting him stabbed so many times and not letting him die? Like, that just showed that they catch him or maybe stab him like a few times, but he was stabbed so many times. Why keeping him alive? And not only that, he was also still doing stuff. He was freeing Tatum from the tapes on her legs so that she can escape. She then jumps off the chair, pushes Jessica away, and then Sidney, I think, shoots the doctor in the head, so he dies immediately. Which I was glad, because he was unnecessarily there. And also his death was like, it was not big. It was just like, oh, getting rid of him. He had no reason to be Ghostface. And that's also how he died. He did not die in a Ghostface manner. He was just like, okay, we got you here because we need the second Ghostface, but can you please go now? It was basically like that. He just died right in the spot. Jessica then escapes and runs into the house. Sidney runs with her and they kind of fight with each other. Tatum then comes back, attacks Jessica and helps Sidney escape. And Jessica kind of like hides in the house, then tries to attack both of them. Sidney and Tatum then shoot Jessica in the head like so many times that her face basically falls off. And I honestly have to say I liked this scene because it was kind of like you could see a bond between Tatum and Sidney there, that both of them kind of became the final girls, which I liked. I thought it was kind of, wholesome content. In the next scene, we see Mark getting into an ambulance and we see him kind of like nodding to Sidney that he's going to be fine. In the end scene, we see Gale, Mindy and Chad showing up at the house, and Mindy basically says that she's too tired to make an interview or a spot right now, and Gale telling her that she's going to be the basically news anchor or interviewer in the spot, and Mindy's like, oh well, I guess I'm fine, and then starts to film the news about the attack. We also see Gale and Sidney having a little talk again, with Sidney telling Gale that basically Gale is the only person she trusts. Which I liked. It was also wholesome content, a wholesome scene between the two of them. And I think it kind of sets a good story, or could set a good story, for Scream 8, which is already confirmed. Overall, I think the film was okay. I've seen some people on the internet say that it's kind of like nostalgia bait, which I get, but there's so much wrong. Like, I get that they kind of want to go back to the roots and maybe kind of want to give something to the fans. Also with the museum-ish type of Macher House, I like that a lot. We see the relationship between Sidney and her daughter, which I liked a lot. We see like everyone being suspect. We see Gale again. I liked it. It was good, but there were also on the other side so many things wrong and so many missed opportunities. Burning down the Macher House in the first scene felt so flat. Not doing any burning or anything at all in the remaining film, it felt boring afterwards. It felt like there was some bigger scene missing. We didn't get to know any of the other characters, any of the friends. When they were killed, I did not care about them at all. The killing of Hannah was good, it was graphic, but it was boring because there was no fight at all. We've just seen her hanging in the air, getting stabbed, and that's it. I also did not care about Chloe. And I also did not care about Lucas. Lucas' death was such a missed opportunity because you could have set up such a cool relationship or struggle between him being a horror film fan and his mother being Ghostface. His mother being Ghostface, the fourth point in my critique, did not make sense at all. It was boring. It felt like last minute. The reasoning was okay, but I wasn't buying it. And also, I don't know if it's a fifth point, but additional to that, the doctor being Ghostface, there was no reason for him to be Ghostface. It was just that they have a second Ghostface. He had also no explanation, and he was basically also just killed off so that he's gone. It felt flat for him, for both of them being Ghostface. Also, that the dad was attacked so many times but still survived didn't make sense to me. The interview, it was not giving what we've been waiting for, it was boring. And the whole idea of Stu still being alive is so extremely ridiculous at this point that I don't know what I would have preferred. Him still being alive or Jessica and the doctor being Ghostface. It's both extremely ridiculous and it does not make sense. So I'm sorry. For me, Scream 7 is getting like, because I love the Scream franchise so much and it still had some points referring to the old films, I would say 5 out of 10 stars, but like warm-hearted 5 out of 10 stars. The first one, of course, gets 10 out of 10 stars, but I'm not sure if it's fair to always compare all the films to the first one because the first one was so unique and so good that I think we could try to maybe see them as individual films. But then seeing them as individual films, I would even give Scream 7 a lower rating because apart from all the nostalgia, it was not giving anything to me. I'm sorry. So what do you think about this film? Did you like it? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I would be glad if you leave some comments in the comment section so we can discuss it as well. And if you love horror films as much as I do, by the way, I painted this by myself. If you want to see how I did it, you can also follow me on Instagram. I will leave my channel in the description. Oh shit. I'd be glad if you could subscribe to this channel and see each other either in the comment section or in the next video. Bye!